The male reproductive system, it is composed by several structures like testicles, penis, epididymis, vasa differentia, seminal vesicles, prostate gland, and some other more. The main function of the male reproductive system is to form and grow the sperms, which carries the genetic material from men to be transpassed to women. Sperm is produced in the lobes of the testicle, which they are composed as well by the seminiferous tubules. Within the seminiferous tubules, sperm is produced and gets fed by all the nutrients within the testicles. As long as this sperm get mature, it is transported from other structures like the epididymis, like the vas deferens, and into the spermatic cord. Along of this way, sperm is getting mature and is getting fed. In other words, sperm is getting stronger and is getting prepared to be stored in other organs and ready for being ejaculated. Along this tubular system, there is some glands like the bulbourethral glands and the prostate gland that produces secretion, special substances that are produced within these tubes for feeding the sperm and preparing the ejaculatory liquid. Seminal vesicles and prostate gland are considered to be the most important glands in the ejaculatory liquid. The process of producing sperm, it is called spermatogenesis. And the spermatogenesis is controlled by a perfect hormone system, which starts in the hypothalamus, producing a substance or a hormone called GnRH, which in other words means gonadotropin release hormone. This first hormone is produced in the hypothalamus and stimulates the pituitary gland in producing two other hormones, that is FSH and LH. FSH stands for follicle stimulant hormone and the other LH means luteinizant hormone. These two hormones control directly within the testicle the formation of testosterone mainly, but there is also in male some little amount of estrogen and progesterone as well. All of these hormones together controls the spermatogenesis. This perfect orchestra of hormones, it is controlled by a mechanism called negative feedback. There is in our brains some cells that function like sensors. These cells are perceiving the amount of testosterone that we have in our bodies. As soon as the testosterone decreases in the blood, this triggers a cascade of phenomena starting with the production of GnRH, secondary FSH and LH are produced, for finally getting stimulated testicles and producing testosterone. When testosterone increases in the blood, this triggers the feedback mechanisms and the hypothalamus stops producing GnRH, and then hypothalamus stops stimulating the hypophysis in producing FSH and LH. In this way, the body controls perfectly testosterone levels in a steady form. The female reproductive system, it is composed by several organs like the ovaries mainly, the oviducts or the fallopian tubes, the uterus also known as womb, The uterus is composed as well by the cervix and by the endometrium, and finally by the vagina. Each of the female organs have different purpose in the body. The ovaries are the organs that contains the oocytes or the eggs. The oviducts or the fallopian tubes are the ducts that conducts the eggs from the ovaries into the uterus. The uterus is the organ that may contain the eggs, and when they are fecundated, they will contain the baby for the 9 months during this time of the pregnancy. And the vagina is the duct, the birth duct, as well as a exterior reproductive organ. Every 20 to 30 days, women may have matured one of their eggs or the oocytes, the one that is ovulated by the day 14 of a 28-day cycle. When the egg is ovulated, this is transported from the ovaries to the uterus through the fallopian tubes. And it's here in the fallopian tubes where the majority of the times the fertilization it is produced after an intercourse. Once this occurs into the fallopian tubes, it will take about 3 days that the egg will be finally transported into the uterus where the implantation may occur. All of this may occur if the egg is fecundated. If the egg is not fecundated, which occurs the majority of the times, then the menstruation or the period may occur, which is no other thing that the interior tissue from the uterus within also may contain the non-fertilized egg will be secreted through the vagina for having a renewal of this epithelium in the uterus and having repeating this cycle again. If the fertilization occurs and if it's a successful implantation, we will have a fully and natural pregnancy developed. And this is another story, but it will take 9 months, this new organism, this new human being, to be fully prepared, to born and to join into our lives. But this happens only if the egg is fecundated and if it's successfully implanted into the uterus. Female reproductive cycle is perfectly controlled by the same hormonal system that males have. So this means that in women as well, there is the production of the GnRH or gonadotropin release hormone by the hypothalamus. The one will be transported and stimulate the pituitary gland or the hypophysis to produce FSH and LH, or in other words, follicle stimulant hormone and luteinizant hormone respectively. These two hormones will stimulate the ovaries to produce estrogen and progesterone mainly, and there's also some amount of testosterone produced as well. In women, the production of all of these hormones cyclically form every 28 days may determine two different cycles. One of these cycles occurs in the ovaries and is called the ovarian cycle. The other cycle occurs in the uterus and it is called menstrual cycle. These two independent cycles are in some form synchronically formed in order to produce from one side a mature egg. This is from the ovarian side. and in the uterus to prepare the interior of the uterus for a possible pregnancy. So these two phenomena, these two cycles are orchestrated for preparing the body for getting pregnant. The first period, the first part of these cycles, when it's occurring in the ovary, there is a predominance of estrogen that is stimulating the ovaries to produce a mature egg. And at the same time, in the uterus, the endometrium, which is the inner tissue of the uterus, is getting thick and is getting fully enriched in nutrients, preparing for the fecundated egg. At the day 14, a huge amount of luteinizing and hormone determines the phenomenon called ovulation, which is the expulsion of a mature egg from the ovary into the fallopian tube. Then the egg, if it's not fertilized, this egg will get to the endometrium and is not going to be an implantation. So as soon as this not happens, the menstruation follows. In the second phase of the menstrual period, it is the progesterone what is predominantly. And if it's not a pregnancy presented, all of this tissue will be detached from the uterus and it will be converted into menstruation for starting this cycle again and again. And this will happen during the whole time of the during the whole fertile life of this woman until the batch of eggs or oocytes it's over. When this happens in women, this phenomenon is known as menopause and is no other thing that there is no more oocytes in the ovaries to get mature. So there the production of estrogen and progesterone decreases drastically. So this is the indicator of the ending of the fertile life of this woman and the conversion into the menopause phase. The reproductive act is something that men and women should be taken very seriously because this means not only having sex but also recognize the the power the human beings have to bring a new human being into the world. Recognize the responsibility that this carries. So that's why there's nowadays effective methods to contraceptive. And this is something that as well we have to take very seriously because it doesn't mean that we every time that we have intercourse we have to bring a life here. So we have to recognize the value of this. We have to recognize that we empower us to control this and decide with all of the criteria when it's appropriate to bring a new life here. There are several birth control methods. There's ones that are more effective than others. There are some others that are effective to prevent sexual transmitted diseases. There's one of them, or there's many of them that they not provide any protection against sexual transmitted diseases. So it's not only a life what we are talking about. We are talking about health here, and we have to recognize that having sex it is not only a matter of sharing what two people may have from each other, but also that it exists the risk of transmitted sexual diseases, many of them that may impact the lives forever. So there's several methods of contraceptive and to prevent sexual transmitted diseases.